Those eyes.
Ah, yeah.
Remember, you saw it here first, folks. What did the 60s, when you look back at it now, Dusty, what was the big thing in the 60s for you? I mean, just the sheer excitement of the thing, the newness of it?
I think it was probably, I don't know how to put this without sounding conceited. All right, it's going to sound conceited. I was one of the few singers around that had a really hefty voice, you know, and I learnt that by slavishly imitating Americans. I mean, it was my dream to sound like the Shirelles or the Ronettes or whoever it was that day.
The Ronettes, yeah.
Or any of the Motown acts. And I think that being able to sort of have the freedom, especially on some of the albums I did in 63, 64, 65, a freedom in England that I never got when I went to the States. I mean, I was pretty eclectic in my choice of material. Yeah. And the British let me get away with it. And Americans never did. They always want to pigeonhole you. They have a great need to categorize.
Categorize. You see, maybe it's because we were in the 60s. Well, certainly myself and Derek, but Anne was, of course, very small then.
She was but a mere whisper.
A mere whisper, indeed.
New Dusty Springfield then.
We tend, and maybe it's sentimental nostalgia. We look back and we think it was much cleaner and much more open and much more free, and that the songs were better and the tunes were tunier and so on. Now you come along and you say, well, that's not so, because the music is better now technically anyway. But there seems to be an air of almost a seaminess about the pop world now that wasn't there in the 60s. Do you agree?
I think that it's just there's so much fusion of the pop world, rock, Latin, jazz, whatever, black, white, fashion. The whole thing has just sort of melded into one thing. And I find it, certainly on returning here, a much more exciting scene musically than it ever was before. The 60s, David Frost was saying this either last night or the night before. Most people in this survey viewed the 60s as the best decade for a long time.
I can understand people collecting 60s memorabilia, but I couldn't understand anybody. What would you say from the 1980s? What pop memorabilia would you keep on?
There will be. I mean, look at it. I mean, you just had Simon & Barnes' Mammon. I mean, let's think of the innovative bands that are happening in the 80s. I think that on that program the other night, the survey was that in the 60s there was a great hope and expectation of things to come, and a great sort of, you know, that the whole early hippie movement and the mod movement and all those things were happening during the 60s. And I think people were looking into the future more and thinking that it was going to be great. So that made them think that the 60s were actually greater than they were.
Maybe so. There you go. The 60s
I had a
were
good
greater.
time.
Well, we all had a good time. It was terrific, and we're having a good time.
Well, yeah, indeed, the 60s. Now you've got
Derek edited nearly every newspaper in the 60s.
Madonna cavorting around in her mum's old bra.
Hold on a wee moment.
What's that got to do with you?
Don't start him off, Dusty. We've got to take a break. After that, I think it's going to be Chris Tarrant. Join us soon.
Slipper of the yards, 2-1 on favourite to get it after his failure to catch Ronnie Biggs. Of course, they reckon that he's going to succeed with this one. But
Get to the big bit yet.
Oh, no, well, when you release a video, we'll play the video.
Great.
Certainly
It starts to wake up in about 20 seconds. All hell lets loose.
It's a beautiful sound. It really is. It's very Dusty Springfield, isn't it?
Yes, I've gone already. Oh,
he's
God.
Wake
That
up.
voice is back, folks.
Quickness, the screams.
Get the old heart going again.
When, as I said, you shot to fame in the 60s, as it were, where did you think up the eyes? I mean, the eyes are you, aren't they?
Yeah.
Mike, I can remember rows in our house about, you know, my sister wanting to go out in Dusty Springfield eyes. Where did they come from? Whose idea?
It was really it was mine. At that time in Paris, the models were wearing a lot of very, very dark eye makeup. And it was my attempt at getting it right, but I got it wrong. But it sort of became a trademark, so I just sort of stuck to it. Besides, it was a very time-saving device because I never took it off. Except about every 3 weeks I would take it off.
You're kidding.
Well, it took about 6 days to get a real good build-up, because if you put talcum powder on it at night and then you build on it the next day. I mean,
Didn't they glue together?
Oh, many times, but you know, sent for the doctor and everything was all right.
Wonderful.
What?
No, I was just going to say, you cover them with glasses when you take a shower or something like that, do you?
Well, no, you just take baths very carefully.
We better take a break very speedily and join us soon. Welcome back, which is nearly the last sort of furlong of the programme. It's 8:45, and of course after 9 o'clock the rat will be down the sewer. But Dusty Springfield is still with us, and
I
so
want
is
to meet
Derek
the
Jameson.
rat.
You can meet the rat if you like.
Sure, you can meet the rat.
Dusty, tell us please what you've been doing beyond in America all those years. What did you actually do?
Actually, I did work quite consistently there and made albums, etc. But I got very involved with one particular animal cause.
Yes,
Which was?
It's called Wildlife Way Station. It's the only shelter of its kind for abandoned or abused exotic animals. And exotic animals really is another word for anything you should not keep as a household pet. Anything from a snake or an otter, even a raccoon, to a very large Siberian tiger or a Kodiak bear.
Well, what was your involvement in it? You didn't...
Well, I'm just on the board of directors to try to raise the awareness of people that these animals are wild and they are not to be kept as household pets.
What sort of people were trying to?
Just people who want to be flash. The whole point is most of them are abused out of ignorance rather than a sense of cruelty. There are some who've been beaten up with crowbars and things. But basically, these animals, you buy a tiger cub, that's fun, you know, except that they forget they're going to grow up to be 450 pounds, 500 pounds a tiger. So they defang them, declaw them, and they can never go back into the wild. Neither can they go to a zoo because they'll be attacked by their own species and they are no longer a Class A exhibit. And so we get them, and we have about 600 animals up there that have just got nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. Particularly bears that humans encourage by feeding them in the national parks. Then, of course, the bears get smart. They even learn how to open cans, but they eventually will attack the humans for food. And they either get shot or we get them.
You were always fond of animals, though, weren't you?
Yes, enormously. I was never allowed to keep animals as a child. And so I got very reactionary about it when I grew up. I'm a complete cat freak.
Have you got any now?
I've got 2 in California called Fortnum and Sister Mary Catherine. And
Sister Mary Catherine?
Sister Mary Catherine, yes.
There must be a story behind that.
No, she just looks like a Sister of Charity. She's got the exact markings of a nun. Over here I have 2 that I borrowed from somebody. One is called Alfred, who's only that big, and one is called Bouffe, which I cannot translate because it's quite obscene. But if anyone knows French, they might want to. He's an amazing little cat, but he's twice the size of his brother.
So are you going to develop a system where you live in Britain and America?
That would be
You've
nice.
got a home in each place now?
No, I don't have a home here. Actually, I don't have a home in California either. I'm just living out of suitcases. I've decided to leave my life open as to where, you know, if anyone says go to Scandinavia, I go to Scandinavia. I just put everything in storage and said, let's go for it.
Well, I read in I think, the Sunday Times yesterday that really your comeback, as it were, and I think it's unkind to see you make a career of comebacks, because I haven't heard of you making a comeback before, was Peter Stringfellow's idea, the nightclub owner, entrepreneur.
Yes, Peter.
What did you think when he actually said, come on, I'm going to bring you back to Britain and we're going to launch you big? I mean, were you a bit frightened?
Well, it was Peter upset me because, I mean, I really liked the man, but his tendency was to think in terms of high-energy disco. And when he first approached me, albeit I was talking to other record companies who were large ones, but I didn't want to go that route again because you can get lost in the swim. So I thought, well, a smaller one with all the enthusiasm behind it and actually being able to talk face-to-face with the head of the record company would be a change for me, without going through hundreds of millions to reach that person. But it took a lot of talking and negotiating to reach the fact that I did not want to be a disco queen, because I'm just not. I'm just not. I look idiotic.
And what about this time round with the newspaper people constantly? I mean, they're going to like you said last time, they got fed up with being nice to you, they turned nasty. Do you think it could happen again, and how will you cope?
Well, they've already started.
I mean, the embarrassing questions and the private life.
Yes, they've always on about my private life. I'm beginning to develop a set of answers. I mean, it's really dumb of them to keep asking the same questions, because they're going to get the same answers, and they want different angles, but they keep answering this. So I decided I'm not going to do any more press for a while unless they're real quality pieces. I mean, and Jean Rook did a really good piece, and McMahon in the Times, but the popular press just wants to have a go at me.
Well, I don't think the public want to read anything nasty about you. We've had some lovely phone calls, particularly from Alex and Jeff of your fan club, who say, good luck with your record. And we've had lots
Thanks,
of...
Alex.
Somebody else rang and said, we want to see Dusty dance, which is a bit unkind.
At this hour of the morning?
Anyway, it's been smashing to talk to you.
Yes.
Is this the
Thank
point
you.
where
And
we have to
last,
say-
we have to say goodbye
have
to
to say
Dusty and
goodbye.
Derek, and to old, what's his
right.
name, Greavesy here, who's been hanging on
best
to
of
as
luck
well.
with the record.
Best of luck.
Thanks. It's been very nice being here.